Hey guys, what's going on? ZeroArmada here with a Blacklight Retribution gameplay and commentary, going over the first episode for the Blacklight Arms Dealer series. And just before we get into that, I'm playing Piledriver TDM, and kind of just talk about what I have planned for the series. We already have over 200 submissions for builds to be reviewed, so just keep in mind that obviously there's a high volume of stuff I have to review and go over, and obviously making videos for that is going to take a long time. So keep in mind that there's going to be a lot of different builds, and some people might not get their builds ultimately reviewed just because of the sheer volume of requests. But just like last time in the last video, I'll keep the submission forms in the description box down below if you have a build that you want me to review. I'm going to have a form for the BFR, the BPFA, and then the generic form which has everything but the BSMG, TSMG, and the AMR, because you can't really customize those that much to begin with. So there's no point to really review builds for those typical receivers. But kind of what I have planned is basically for every video I'm gonna review a new receiver. So today's video is gonna be on the AR. Next video will be on the combat rifle, or the bolt action rifle, then the combat rifle, then the BFR, and then the SMG, and so on and so forth till we go through the whole list of receivers. And then we're gonna go all the way back to the AR and start all over again. So just to kind of introduce some variants and just to kind of mix it up. We're just going to have a different receiver every episode until we run out of receivers, and then we'll just start back from the beginning. But the first submission is from Yum Pudding Yum, and he submitted a assault rifle with the Krane SBR1 muzzle, the ArmCom Elite barrel, the EMI RiVAL-2 scope extended magazine, the Silverwood IRF2 tactical stock, and a damage tag. So just to kind of some background for this build based on my impressions. Obviously high damage AR. Most ARs really, you see a lot of good AR players, or most of the AR builds kind of hover around the 50 to 51 damage build. That seems to be the perfect balance point for just enough low spread to really keep the gun manageable for hip fire. As an AR, of course, it's obviously a jack of all trades, and you want to best maximize that trade by having low spread to kind of give you the best advantage in close quarter combat, long range, medium range, and while you're ADSing completely. So with that in mind, first off, scope I'm not a fan of. Of course, it's obviously personal preference, but I think the EMI RiVAL is kind of more suited for a weapon for sniping or for burst fire, like a combat rifle or something like that. So I'd recommend a ELO-Tech or something like that. It's kind of like a broken record type of thing. I always say that, but I think you would really see a better benefit with using a different scope. So that's out of the way. Just to keep it a high damage AR, basically what I did for my improvements or what I suggested for this build was to add a couple of parts, mainly the muzzle and the barrel, and kind of go for side grades in a sense where the damage trade-off isn't high or too expensive, but we minimize spread. And based off of kind of what I see in my gameplay and kind of when I was trying out his gun, I saw a lot of horizontal displacement or spread on the bullet patterns. And that's kind of a typical for a high spread weapon, a high damage weapon. You're going to have obviously a harder time shooting the weapon and having your shots connect. But by just going for 1 point less damage, going for 54 damage AR, it's still somewhat considered a high damage AR. We have a lot less spread on the weapon based on my suggested parts to switch out, and ultimately you have a gun that's a little bit easier to control, a little bit easier to get your shots in. Every shot counts and every bullet counts. So just by lowering the spread a little bit and sacrificing 1 point of damage, you have a totally different gun. So basically what I did for my suggested changes was I swapped out the Krane SBR1 muzzle for the Vulcan Rift muzzle. And with that, you're basically sacrificing an additional 0.05 points in recoil for all across reductions in spread. 0.03 in aim, 0.06 in hip, and 0.07 in move. And then you also get a range increase of 1 point on max and min. So that may not seem like much, but for just sacrificing 0.05 recoil on a low recoil receiver, mind you, AR has really no recoil on it compared to some of the other weapons out there like the HAR. So we can mitigate the penalties in the spread and move them over to the recoil and move them over to the damage to get a weapon that's still high damage but still a lot easier to control with these modifications. So we're going with the Vulcan Rift, and then for the barrel we're going with the AK barrel, the Briar Rhino 25A. That's a 1 point reduction in damage. You got a 54 damage AR, but you have 0.03 reduction in aim, 0.06 reduction in hip, and about 0.07 reduction in the spread move, and an additional point increase in your min-max range as well. So two similar parts in terms of what they have to offer for spread. Pretty much a total reduction of about 1415 or 0.1415 points of spread total with those two parts while losing 1 damage point and 0.05 recoil. And obviously there's not much you can really do with the high damage assault rifle to begin with, but just those marginal values and reductions in spread can make a huge difference in the battlefield. And that's kind of my overall impressions on what I would do with the gun. I didn't want to really mess with it too much. I still wanted to keep it high damage, but recoil is not really, like I said, recoil is not really an issue with an AR. So I pretty much just focus on reducing the spread as much as I can while still keeping the AR somewhat high damage from that standpoint. So that's what I would suggest. The final build basically turns out as the Vulcan R19 Rift muzzle, the Elite X3 barrel, the ELO-Tech scope, extended magazine, and then the IRF2 tactical stock. For the stock though, you can always resort to something like the ACP-3 collapsible stock if you want lower hip and aim spread. That's gonna bluster your move spread though and make it a little bit more unmanageable. So the V2 folding CQC/B stock is also a good option. It'll increase your recoil by about 0.25 points, but you have some great reductions in spread as a result, and everything else, your scope and time, your range, and your run speed are also benefits as well with this stock. So there's a couple options with the stock, but I didn't want to do too much to really change the complexion of the weapon, so I left the stock alone, but those are some suggested changes for that as well. But I think that's pretty much it for this build, what I would change on it. If you have any questions or comments, let me know what you guys think about this video and about this series. And if you have any other things you want me to add on to it for the next time, leave them down below. And thanks for watching as always, guys.